Welcome to Truth and Transparency Sunday morning. Waking up to some coffee and a killing. So let's do this. Wait for you guys to get in a little. Told you guys I would do a little OJ for you. Try to keep my promises. Promises. But how we doing? Welcome. Truth and Transparency. A little hazy, but not too bad. It's sunny as can be outside for me. Welcome to OJ. How was it? Bed early and everything. Catching up on all my sleep. Hey, Mod Squad. Good morning. Long time no talk. Important paperwork right here, girl. Let's put that right over there. Well, guys, Sunset Secrets completely edited season 1. Like, we're talking, like, pictures and stuff. Oh, my God, New Orleans lady. Long time no see. That's awesome. Yes, OJ, covering the OJ case. Best documentary out there because it's all from the trial. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, I told people I would start at 10:45, so I'm a little early. So I'm going to grab my drink of choice this morning. I'm going to spike my coffee with Bailey's. In honor of F. Lee Bailey here. Let's see. Really quick. Last night I listened to Bella and Zavril do the Delphi interview with Klein. Whew. Was that a tough one? Woo-wee. OJ didn't do it. That's exactly what I'm saying, girl. OJ didn't do it. Good morning, LMB. But New Orleans lady, glad we feel the same way about that. But yeah, so this is part of the OJ series. But last night I was listening to that 911 or not 911, that police interview with Klein, and hard to listen to. Yeah. Bella has my favorite voice. Oh, that's sweet. She'll love to hear that, I'm sure. I told her that she had poor mic control last night and she needed to step up her game. Now she's losing her voice, so. But yeah. But if you're interested in the Delphi case is what that comes from. And so she did a true crime reading on her channel. It's normally like not like that, so this is Lana is on the big TV, but I can chat via my phone and it's not playing on my phone, if you get what I mean. So no two Lanas, just got one. Aw. If Lana's on the big screen, it's like, watch this. Just had to. But yeah. All right, let me grab my beverage and I will press play, and we're going to this I think is one of my favorite episodes out of them, because the answers that this cop gives is just like, wow. But I actually did some digging into Ron Goldman's situation with living, so that is something I'm going to talk about as well. Because I always wondered, why didn't he just go there right after, work? Well, he literally lived right down the street from where he worked. That's Luna. So, why didn't he just, go right to Nicole's house? Well, it was, that actually would be out of the way if he's planning on still going out that night. So go home, change, then drop off the glasses. Now, it has been rumored that the gate wasn't working. So, like, you couldn't buzz somebody in. I'm looking into that, if the gate was working or not. Because I always said, well, why was Nicole outside of the house, right? If it was just Ron, there'd be no altercation with Ron. And if she was planning on having Ron come in, then, they're going to be then proceeding, like, into the house, or, but it would all have to do with the buzzer. Like, if you just buzz somebody in and they come up to your door. There's rumors saying that the buzzer was not working right. So I'm looking into that. But let me grab my beverage, and we'll begin this beautiful Sunday morning all together, like church. All right, let's do this.
Mommy, I'm hungry.
Oh, great. I'm going to be making eggs, too, while we're doing this. You want some eggs, buddy? What do you want, eggs and hash browns? That sounds like a winner to me. Let me guess. Well, you can't have Chick-fil-A because it's Sunday and they're not open. So I'm just going to ruin your plans of that right now. Okay, guys, here we go. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. OJ Fest.
Simpson enters week 7 with the prosecution trying to get back on track after the diversion of Rosa Lopez. One of the first witnesses takes the stand, only to have their testimony interrupted by a different kind of explosive moment in the courtroom. I'm Roger Cossack, and this is OJ 25.
Ladies and gentlemen, my apologies to you.
What is up, Delaney?
Getting started.
What is up, Delaney?
We had a bomb scare down on the bottom floor, and the sheriffs and the LAPD had to evacuate 2 of the floors. They had to stop all the elevators.
This is the second time there's been a bomb threat in the trial. Jurors have not heard any testimony for a week, thanks to the Rosa Lopez diversion.
The building has been secured. It's not a problem, and we're ready to proceed. Detective Tom Lang.
Do you guys remember this? 2 bomb threats. Like, what? Oh, glad Delaney's here. I've been missing her. Got the mock trial back, by the way, for Chris Watts, so it'll be back on, love. So, but yeah, totally forgot about this. But this is what happened. This is just wild. So, just reminding everybody about that.
Has resumed the witness stand. The detective has been reminded he is still under oath. All right, Mr. Cochran, you may resume with your cross-examination.
Thank you. Good morning, Detective Lane.
Morning.
You haven't retired yet, have you?
Not yet.
Still there? Okay, great. Good to have you back. As the investigating officer in this case, would it be relevant to you to know, for instance, what time Mr. Goldman had his last meal that evening?
Certainly could be, yes.
And did you ascertain where and when he had his last meal and what time?
I did not.
All right, but you were present during the autopsy, were you not?
That's correct.
And you're the investigating officer, one of them, is that right?
That's correct.
Time of death is critical in this case, is it not?
Yes.
And did you talk to the coroner's office about the stomach contents of Mr. Goldman, trying to determine when he had his last meal and at what time?
We discussed time of death in regards to stomach contents And the fact that digestion could be retarded if one were under a great deal of stress. Consequently, the findings regarding the contents in the stomach may not always be accurate.
Well, who told you that anyone was under a great deal of stress?
Who told me?
Yes, who told you that?
That's my opinion, that both of these victims would certainly be under a great deal of stress.
What were the stomach contents? When was their last meal? That could be evidence. Whatever they had somehow figure into there as to time of death. It also comes into play as to if you look at the digestive system and how long it takes to digest whatever that food was, could come into play at time of death.
Have you spoken to any expert forensic pathologist about the state of the stomach contents of Mr. Goldman that night, and whether or not that expert can help us and assist us in determining when Mr. Goldman had his last meal?
Objection not is relevant beyond the scope.
It's very relevant, Your Honor. It's relevant.
Testify.
Overruled. Speaking objection, Your Honor. Speaking objection. All right, you may answer. Have you?
Regarding time of death?
Yes.
Yes, that, and the other factors, any time of death was given to me between 9 p.m. and 12 midnight, closer to 9.
You're going to be asked about time of death, and you ask me a lot about time of death. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a pathologist, but I know about time of death because you deal with that all the time.
That's not the question I ask you. The question is, have you talked to a forensic pathologist with regard to Mr. Goldman's stomach contents? And has that forensic pathologist been able to look at the state of those stomach contents and assist us in determining when Mr. Goldman had his last meal?
Objection has been answered.
Overruled.
Specifically as to the stomach contents,
Yes.
no.
Okay, we're talking about stomach contents. No is the answer.
That's correct.
Honestly, I knew what his cross was going to be. And this is a big deal. This is a man who doesn't handle homicide cases. He sues people. He was going to ask me all the basic things that would be expected of a homicide cop and try to follow me up.
Let me see if I can make it so you understand it. Did you ever, as the investigating officer in this case, ever consider any other theory than that O.J. Simpson was the only perpetrator in this case?
Any other theory?
Yes, any other theory, any other possibilities?
I had absolutely no other evidence that would point me in any other direction.
Did you find any information where Mr. Goldman had Miss Nicole Brown Simpson's phone number there?
Again, I didn't investigate or examine anything at that location that may have happened. I don't recall seeing it.
They had a sexual relationship. And there was evidence that came up that never made it to trial that Ron Golden and Nicole Brown Simpson actually drove her white Ferrari up at Rockingham when Simpson was out in the yard and actually made sure that he saw them. Now, the person that said that could have been lying. I don't know why somebody would.
There was all those theories that they were dating, and I don't believe that, because Ron was pretty open about who he was dating. I think I probably met every girl he ever dated.
All right, do you recall that Miss Nicole Brown Simpson's phone number appears twice in these copies? Do you recall that?
He didn't meet every girl that he dated. Sorry. It's just not
Okay, does that appear
possible.
to be Nicole Simpson
Yes,
and her phone number?
yes,
And so you see at least on 2 occasions her numbers found in these documents that were allegedly found in Mr. Goldman's apartment.
yes.
And in fairness, there are other female numbers, other female names with numbers therein also.
Yes, sir. Yes.
It is my understanding that my brother and Nicole were just acquaintances. It's been told to me that they were friends, that they frequented the same gym and the Starbucks and whatever social activities they can be doing in that little area. But I will say this, even if my brother was having a romantic relationship with Nicole Brown Simpson, it did not justify him being slaughtered to death and Nicole being nearly decapitated.
Did you follow up on any of the names of the people contained in this information?
I don't recall if I specifically did or if it was done at all.
I don't think that there was anything tawdry going on between them. And frankly, if they were dating, who cares, right?
If you jump to a conclusion sometimes, don't you find out later that there were other things that you could have looked at by making a quick decision in a particular case? Isn't that true?
Objection stays argumentative.
Sustained.
You would agree with me that it's not good investigative practices to rush to judgment in a case. Would you agree with that?
Certainly.
Did you ever consider that Mr. Goldman could have been a person followed to that location? Did you ever consider that at all?
I think it's entirely possible he was followed.
When he came to Mr. Nicole Brown Simpson's residence, did you ever consider that as a possible theory?
There were a lot of theories out there, and in one of the TV shows, they attributed the theory of the necklace, the Columbia necklace. I totally rejected it. I didn't think that it was our burden to come up with theories and hypotheses. I thought our job was to tear apart the prosecution's case, which we did very effectively.
Once you came to your conclusion, or you developed your theory that she was killed first, it's true, is it not? You never looked at any other possible theories, isn't that correct?
My theory that she was killed, that's not my theory that she was killed first. That was in response to a question as to something that may have possibly happened. I can't tell you who was killed first.
Is that your theory, that she was killed first?
No.
That's not your theory?
No.
You don't believe that?
I don't know.
Well, in this superficial investigation you did regarding the possibility of drugs, what did you do?
In any murder, there's always the possibility of drugs.
Can you answer my question? What did you do with regard to your superficial investigation regarding drugs in this case, not any murder?
Overruled. Go ahead and answer the question.
Considered the possibility that drugs may have been involved by looking for evidence of drugs at the scene or becoming aware of any...
We always agree to disagree, girl. Come on now.
Knowledge that the victim might have had something to do with drugs. That's normally something we would do if we had another direction to go. This particular case, we had another direction to go.
They wanted to portray this as some Colombian drug deal gone bad, and I don't believe any of that. It just doesn't make sense, because the level of conspiracy would have to be so deep and so intricate and so perfect. It just doesn't work like that. Nothing works like that.
Based on your experience, sir, and training, in your opinion, was the murder of Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown a drug-related murder?
I do not believe they were.
Please tell us why.
It's been my experience that the vast majority of drug-related murders that are carried out with a handgun or a firearm of some type. It's also been my experience that usually there will be evidence of narcotics usage or sales at the location, such as scales or debris from narcotics, something to indicate the sales or use of narcotics.
Did you find any evidence of drug usage or sales at 875 South Bundy?
No.
O.J. really opened up about Nicole, and he said a few days ago that Nicole had come over to the house and wanted to borrow a large amount of money. He said that she had gotten into some trouble with some drug dealers, and she owed him $50,000, and he had said no to her.
As a good investigator, don't you continue, and don't you, as an investigator, try to develop evidence as it comes forward? Isn't that correct?
If it comes forward, I certainly do.
Right. You don't turn a blind eye on evidence just because it might point toward Mr. Simpson's innocence, do you?
Just the contrary.
All right. So you would follow any particular lead?
Yeah, we are.
Any such lead regarding possible drug involvement would be important to you as an investigator. Isn't that correct?
If I felt that this case involved drugs or drug dealers, it would. The fact is, it doesn't.
Don't be rushed, because these defense attorneys are going to push you, and they're going to push some more. Play those games right back. Deliberately take your time. Deliberately think about things you may not even have to think about. And just take it, and don't get upset. What they want more than anything is for you to get upset.
All right, well, I'm asking you, you said there's new information that you have afterwards, so that you've already made a conclusion in this case that no matter what you heard about drug involvement or Faye Resnick, you don't plan to look into that. Is that what you're saying to us?
No, the fact that the victim may have a friend who uses drugs, and in light of no other evidence in that regard, has very little consequence to me. The fact that every bit of evidence that I have in this case points towards the defendant has a lot more to do with this.
There was a woman named Faye Resnick, whom neither side called at the trial, with a lot of problems, drug problems. She had been living with Nicole. There was a witness we never called.
Yeah, Faye.
Nicole arguing with some people in a white
Bailey.
350 truck on the street outside of her gate. I have to assume that these people had come to collect Faye Resnick, a $30,000 marker for cocaine.
Woohoo!
And got Nicole by mistake.
We contacted Faye Resnick through her website, and she says, quote, "I'm sorry, but I don't see the point in responding to this outlandish conspiracy theory. These lawyer actors are willing to ruin innocent people's lives in order to keep their guilty clients out of jail by spreading harmful lies to create a shadow of doubt in the mind of the jury, and then continue to lie even after the trial to make themselves feel better about what they've done." End quote.
You ever heard of something called a Colombian necklace?
Ooh.
I believe so.
And it's true, is it not, that a Colombian necklace is a situation where drug dealers will slice the neck of a victim, including the carotid artery, in order to kill the victims and to instill fear and send a message to others who have not paid for their drugs or have been informing to the police. Isn't that what a Colombian necklace is?
I've heard that.
And sir, isn't it true that you, in your experience, know about drug killings where knives have been used? Isn't that correct?
I do have knowledge of knives being used, yes.
And sir, in this connection, you are aware, are you not, that Faye Resnick became a resident at Nicole Brown Simpson's place at 875 South Bundy on or about June 3rd, 1994. Isn't that correct?
No, I'm not.
All right, your superficial investigation didn't reveal that?
Initially, the investigation revealed she may have been. I've since received information that she was not a resident at that location, and that is ongoing.
She nearly bled out. That tells me this isn't a common robbery. This isn't a family dispute. This isn't an argument with a neighbor. This is personal. This is something personal here. That's what it tells me.
Now, in the course of your investigation in this matter, your determination that this was not a drug killing, do you consider the fact that that Faye Resnick went into a drug rehabilitation facility on or about June 8th, 1994? Or consider that fact?
I have been told that she had.
The question is now, not what you've been told, sir. Did you consider that fact when you came to this conclusion you told us about yesterday?
When I came to that conclusion I told you about yesterday, I didn't have that knowledge.
All right. So there are other facts that are coming into your knowledge even as we speak in this case. Is that correct?
Every day.
I believe they
Every day.
a lot of money, and they were going to kill
Ass
Faye
clown
Resnick.
right there.
Nicole would pay up, and then everybody knew in L.A. that you don't mess with these guys. Faye checked herself into drug rehab 4 days before the murder. Very convenient, nice place to hide. And instead, they accidentally got Nicole instead.
If Faye Resnick was freebasing cocaine on a daily basis at the Bundy location, so much so that she had to have a drug intervention by June 8th of 1994, and you learned that to be a fact, would that change your opinion about this possibly being a drug-related killing?
If I had that information, that would probably be a consideration if I had no other direction to go.
I had more problems with Marcia than Johnny. It's as simple as that.
I just can't believe he's dissing him and saying like that, he's not a criminal defense attorney. He is, civil rights. He doesn't do this type of stuff. And I'm just thinking like, then he owned your asses, all of you guys. This is not even what he does. Like, why even make that comment? Like, wow. Just wow.
The following program contains graphic images. Viewer discretion is advised.
Detective Tom Lang's Week 7 testimony details the collection of evidence at O.J. Simpson's home. Meanwhile, Johnny Cochran goes after the detective for handling evidence in ways that Cochran says botched the investigation.
You make mistakes, is that correct?
Mr. Cochran, I make mistakes.
All right.
Yes.
Johnny Cochran, very bright, very dry sense of humor, funny guy. Unless you were on the stand, and I was on the stand when he crossed me.
Were you concerned about trace evidence when you carried those tennis shoes under your arm?
Trace evidence was not foremost in my mind at that time.
At that point, I know trace evidence wasn't uppermost in your mind because you have the shoes against your body there, don't you?
They're against my arm, yes.
Yes, and is that a way that you, as an experienced investigator of over 20 years, learned to carry evidence?
That's one way of carrying evidence, yes.
You learned to carry it that way, did you, at the academy?
There's no one way to learn to carry evidence.
This looks like a lot of trouble for a home of a fellow who's not a suspect.
Well, there is such a thing as the elimination process. That may be part of this. We don't have any answers right now. The reason that I obtained those shoes was to have red stains checked for the possibility of blood to obtain a shoe size.
Should have came around, girl.
You know it was negative for blood. Now,
Welcome back,
you and I had some
bitch.
discussions regarding a green piece of paper inside a bag that contained Mr. Goldman's clothes. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Would it be important in the course of your investigation to try and determine where Mr. Goldman went after he got off work?
Yes.
Did you do anything to try and determine that?
Yes.
And what did you do in that connection?
Detectives Tippin and Carr investigated at Mr. Goldman's apartment and found clothing that he had been wearing that night at work at Mezzaluna.
And did you not tell us that the items in that green paper bag were recovered by officers Tippin and Carr? You tell us that, Mr. Goldman's residence?
I don't recall if I did. If I did tell you that, then I misspoke. Those clothes were recovered by the Goldman family.
So you want to change your testimony under oath?
If I stated that, then I misspoke.
But you were wrong, right?
Apparently I was.
And you spell out for us the other day that you do make mistakes, isn't that correct?
Just like everyone else, I certainly do.
Well, we're not talking about everybody else right now. We're talking about you.
Well, sometimes you don't know what evidence you have at a crime scene, which is part of the evidence. Again, is
New Orleans lady, I love that you're back. Hopefully you had a great summer. You go enjoy that 29th wedding anniversary. I'm going to need to know how you, what's the trick? 29 years? Woo! Woo! Teach me your ways. Teach me your ways, woman. But yes, a happy anniversary. You are that special that I stopped my production of OJ. Good to see ya, New Orleans lady. Go enjoy your day, babe.
is the body. So you do everything. But what you don't do is what's going to be questioned. What you do is never going to get questioned.
The blood on Miss Nicole Simpson's back, you saw that at the scene, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
That blood was not preserved. Is that correct?
That's correct. The coroner did not preserve that blood.
What about the failure to preserve the stomach contents of Miss Nicole Brown Simpson? Whose fault was that that was thrown out?
I don't know that it was anyone's fault. I do know I'm not in charge of stomach contents or what occurs at the coroner's office.
Talking about other mistakes, with regard to your report, which indicated that you booked 2 dimes and 2 pennies. Do you recall that?
Correct.
And in fact, you told us on the stand here you only booked 1 dime and 1 penny. Is that right?
In any of the photographs, did you see 2 dimes and 2 pennies?
No, that's a mistake, and I erred in writing 2 down.
So that was a mistake you made in your notes?
That's correct.
All right. You're a human being?
I hope so.
All right.
That's self-serving.
Overruled. I do make mistakes.
Is that a mistake?
I'd certainly call it a mistake, yes.
I thought the defense very adroitly went after the collection of evidence, and there were mistakes that were made. There were better processes that should have been employed.
When you told us under oath that you had seen these blood spots on the rear gate at Bundy, yet no photographs were taken of those blood spots on June 13th, 1994. Is that a mistake?
Was it a mistake of mine?
I didn't ask whose mistake. I said, was that a mistake, Detective Lang?
I would call that a mistake.
The media had a field day. The defense had a field day. There was a problem of blood on the rear gate. We had 4 print texts there. He didn't pick it up. He told me he was distracted later. The blood wouldn't have mattered.
With regard to things like the ice cream.
Yes.
You never bothered to test the melting rate of ice cream until I started asking you questions. Isn't that correct about that?
Until you made it an issue, that's correct. It was of no evidentiary value to me at all.
Nicole was gonna go get some ice cream with the kids. And we kissed each other goodbye.
Well, as the investigator, again, if you made one of your mistakes that you make on occasion, perhaps we call it to your attention. And now you're testing ice cream. Is that correct?
It's argumentative. It's also badgering the witness at this point.
With regard, let me rephrase it, Your Honor. With regard to the ice cream, the first time that you ever did any tests regarding the ice cream was after we started talking about it here in court. Is that correct, sir?
After you made it an issue, that's correct.
With regard to your investigation into the ice cream and the type of ice cream, when did you start that investigation?
As to the melting rate, I believe it was last week, perhaps the week before.
You were able to find out that this ice cream would melt in about an hour and 15 minutes, testing it in 5-minute intervals. Is that right?
Under the conditions that we had, yes.
What time was it that you saw this ice cream cup?
Between 12:30, 12:40 in the morning.
12:30 to 12:40. Now, if Risky found the ice cream still melting at 12:40 a.m., and you extrapolate backwards, would that mean that the person may have been eating that ice cream as late as 11:15, 11:30?
I couldn't say.
All right, at any rate, your investigation on the ice cream continues. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you're doing other investigations also, isn't that correct? That continues, that you've started after this trial, isn't that correct?
We get information on a daily basis, and we conduct this investigation on a daily basis. Everything is ongoing.
The nonsense that he spouted, a lot of it just wasn't true. It was nonsense, like keeping with this theme. Simpson didn't do it. Simpson innocent, cops bad, next case.
And that blanket or sheet had been on top of her body at some point?
Earlier in the day, yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And you never saved that blanket or sheet, did you?
No.
Do you know whether or not there's trace evidence on that blanket or sheet?
He touched it with no glove.
Trace evidence from her body.
I would have no way of knowing what was on that blanket.
And you never saved it. Was it ultimately thrown away?
I believe so.
There were certainly things that could have been done better. Did it change ultimately what evidence was found? I don't think so. But in terms of specific techniques, things could have been done better.
It's just her blood under her fingernails, contrary to what Mr. Cochran said in his opening statement.
This is just addicting, though. Everybody that likes dopamine.
The following program
Sit
contains
in.
graphic images. Viewer discretion is advised.
This is addicting.
I'm going to ask you a series of questions about the cross-examination concerning the coroner. The nail scrapings of the blood found under Nicole Simpson's nails.
Yes.
Was DNA testing conducted on those scrapings, sir?
Yes.
And are you aware of the results of those scraping, the DNA tests on the nail scrapings?
Yes, I am.
And did that testing reveal the blood to be hers?
Yes.
Staying close for hearsay. No. Calls for hearsay. Juries to disregard the last question and answer.
Oh, imagine that. Hearsay's
The
out.
results of the tests of the
Hearsay,
nail scrapings,
over.
Under Nicole Simpson's nails cause you to conduct an investigation into any other suspect?
No.
God, I love Marsha Clark.
Than Johnny. It's as simple as
She
that.
just got...
Because of the way she...
You know what? Like, this is just so unfortunate because I think Marsha Clark is a good attorney. She's passionate. And anytime you got someone that's passionate, you gotta give them props. Marsha Clark is passionate. She cares. Like, But Gil, get down here, Gil, DA Gil, he fucking ruined her career. That's just what happened. If I was Marsha Clark, I would have sued his ass. Just, Gil, you want to prosecute OJ? Then you do it yourself. Because I'm not prosecuting this case. We don't have dick. Okay? We don't have enough. Just unfortunate. It's all politics in LA, though. Politics a lot of places, but...
Approached it. Again, she had a reason.
You know what? I'm going to write Marsha Clark. Maybe she'll come on my channel. Okay? Because I am a Marsha Clark fan. I am a fan of passion. And she did everything that she could to try to win that case. But more importantly, her ex-husband was literally trying to rip her kids away during this case. You want her to stay focused, and you got this going through a divorce ex-husband trying to literally take her kids because, oh, you don't have enough time, and blah, 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 blah. Marsha Clark, like I said, I can think that OJ's innocent just because I think that somebody else did it. And there was evidence that could point that way. They just didn't look at it. But for you to, like, this woman's life was just destroyed. And that just bothers me. Because I believe that Gil was running again for DA. So, again, just a bunch of bullshit. Want to spare a tip for Lana? Oh, yeah. Tip drill. But anyways, we'll continue on. You're right, Delaney. I got to grab my next drink because this is so addicting. And I'm going to do a live about dopamine. I'm going to talk about dopamine and why all these people that were just subs started making channels because of dopamine. They need their dopamine fix. And I'm going to prove that all those people that were addicted to shit, they get in their dopamine another fashion. It's right here on social media. So, here we go. But yeah, props to Marsha Clark. Love you, girl. You can come on my channel. Shit, I may even take you out on a date. I'll let you pay, though, because, I mean, I'm sure you're rocking a job and I'm not. Now everyone's going to say, Lana's trying to date Marsha Clark. Okay.
Share it with me. If you don't want to look like I'm one of your witnesses that in this case, then tell me before so I know. I got stumped a couple of times in some of her questions. I know exactly where Johnny was going. Marcia was from left field.
There was some mention during the redirect of Mr. Lang as to the existence of some DNA results on the finger.
Drop it low, girl.
Of Ms. Simpson. We are not familiar or aware of any reports or anything reflecting that, in fact, there have been DNA.
Oh my God, have you guys heard it? Lana and Marsha Clark went on a date. Yeah, they went out to Metzaluna. Sorry. I just had to. Sorry, we'll get back to our scheduled program here.
Tests performed.
Mr. Harmon, what's the latest on that? Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, Your Honor. The fingernail scraping material is very simple, Your Honor. And Dr. Blake, I'm surprised he hasn't passed this on to the defense. Dr. Blake viewed the results on 3 of the scraping items.
Your Honor, I would object to this. I think the only question is whether or not a report has been produced.
Excuse me, Mr. Scheck, please, don't interrupt.
My objection, Your Honor, is that if he's going to start announcing results in court before we've had a chance to see them, before they've been submitted to Your Honor,
well, he was
that's
about to,
contrary to our...
Mr. Scheck, have a seat, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do you want to know what it is? I mean, it's no surprise. They're consistent with Ms. Brown. It's just her blood under her fingernails, contrary to what Mr. Cochran said in his opening statement.
Expect the evidence to show that there was blood under Ms. Nicole Brown Simpson's fingernails. And that does not fit the genetic profile of Mr. Simpson, Mr. Goldman, or Miss Brown?
It seems to me highly improper for the prosecutor to be able to attempt to elicit, potentially elicit through this witness testimony, A, that he's incompetent to reveal to the jury, and I'll explain why and how severely prejudiced we are by that his testifying to this effect. He is not an expert on DNA. He is not an expert on genetic marker systems. And he's not an expert in, he has no personal knowledge as to how these tests were conducted. And that will be significant as this trial unfolds. Prosecution knows that, intentionally tried to elicit that evidence through this witness, knowing all of that. Number two, they intentionally elicited this testimony through this witness without giving us a report.
Barry Scheck, what did I say in the book? He spots more crap than a ruptured sewer line or something like that?
I'll say something nice about Barry Scheck. I thought I have respect for Barry Scheck as a trial attorney.
We were in this very unusual position that the prosecution is allowed to test whenever they want, in whatever process they want, at whatever speed they want, items of evidence, in this case, to time it to get a strategic advantage. And this is an example of exactly what they're trying to do.
For counsel to get up and call this misconduct when their own expert knows very well what the results are because he's standing and right over their shoulders watching them do the testing is absurd. If they don't communicate with their own expert, the people can't help them. You know, if they don't want to call the guy and ask what happened with this or what happened with that, if I was them, I would. Something like this where I stood up in front of the jury and made promises that I know might never be delivered, in fact, might come back to slap me in the face. I would be calling daily to find out what those results are.
Mr. Scheck,
Yeah,
let me just ask
I'll
you
tell you
that.
exactly what I know and what I don't know. I know that Ms. Clark just said something that was completely untrue. And she should know it. Mr. Harmon knows it, and he should tell it to the court. They didn't send any fingernail scrapings to be tested to the Department of Justice until after the opening statement in this case, long after. So when Ms. Clark gets up here and says, oh, we should know about this ongoing testing, and I'm in total good faith, to my knowledge, that's not true.
Barry Scheck was amazing. He was concerned about whether or not the position that he was going to be taking in this trial was going to be inconsistent with him holding DNA up as kind of, you know, this great science. He recognized that that's not at all, it wasn't inconsistent. It was all the same thing, which is that DNA is great so long as it's collected properly and the proper protocol is followed.
My proposal to make sure that this doesn't happen again is that after they finish testing on a particular item and get a result, they write a report immediately to the court. That's how we would proceed.
I don't know that that's necessarily practical, but
well,
we'll cross that. We're not there yet.
You would think that on a case of this magnitude that everything would be done right and a lot of things were done wrong.
You guys, that was Marsha Clark. She accepted my dinner date. We're going to go to dinner in LA. So she's going to get out of her hole in Montana and she's going to come. Probably a couple times, but.
You've never done that in the 20 plus years you've been a homicide detective?
Never done it. I've never heard of it.
The defense continues to push a second killer theory by questioning evidence found on the Bundy and Rockingham gloves.
I was asking you about hairs on the gloves. You call that?
Yes.
Do your reports indicate whether or not there were Caucasian hairs on the glove found at Bundy?
The report does indicate Caucasian hair, yes.
All right, were there any Caucasian hair found on the other glove that was found?
That's my information, yes.
Johnny Cochran is using Detective Lang to get a message to the juror. Caucasian hairs on the glove. Where do they come from? Either it's another killer, or probably more importantly for the defense at this point, it's Mark Fuhrman. It's a great move to use the detective, lead detective in this case, to basically implant this other theory, using their witness to their advantage.
Were there Negroid hairs found on either or both of those gloves? If you recall.
I don't recall.
Detective Lang, after you determined that the gloves matched, sir, did you make any effort in your investigation to determine what size the gloves were?
Yes.
And what size did you determine them to be?
Extra large.
Sustained.
When you compared the two gloves, the one from Rockingham and the one from Bundy, had you had an interview with the defendant yet?
No.
After examining those, after seeing and comparing those gloves just visually, did you go and see the defendant at Parker Center?
Yes, later that afternoon.
Did you look at his hands?
Yes.
How big do they look?
I'm checking for that.
How big do they look? What up? Come on, Marsha, baby.
The O.J. Simpson trial generated over 100,000 pages of documents.
Holy shit.
Among the trial transcripts, police records, and notes from the coroner, there are also trial memos written by Court TV reporters and producers. One of those memos describes a moment unseen by most, even in the courtroom.
In a dramatic moment reminiscent of classic movies about trials of the accused, O.J. Simpson made a subtle but chilling move that created an everlasting vision from this trial. Detective Tom Lang was testifying about the immense size of the bloody leather gloves found at Bundy and Rockingham. Then, as Lang described visiting O.J. Simpson in jail and observing Simpson's hands, which he said were similarly huge, Simpson glanced around and quickly put his hands under the counsel table, out of sight of the jury and the rest of the world. It clearly was the type of thing that may make a defense attorney wince, especially if the jurors had instinctively glanced over to see how large Simpson's hands really are.
And, sir, did you attempt to determine through your investigation what size the gloves were?
Yes.
Overruled. Overruled.
I'd already determined the size of the gloves.
And did the size of the gloves play a factor in determining whether or not to file the case ultimately on June the 7th?
Instinctively glanced over to see how large Simpson's hands really are.
And, sir, did you attempt to determine through your investigation?
Overruled. Overruled.
It was one of the factors, yes.
Let me ask you about something else. Another factor, sir. The glove that you found at Bundy was that right or left-handed?
Left-handed.
When you saw the defendant on June the 13th, did you notice an injury to either hand?
Yes.
Which one?
Middle finger of the left hand.
Did that play any part in making your determination to file the case on June the 17th?
Yes.
There had been a walkthrough which you had participated in with the defense, I think in August, on about August 27th of 1994. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And at that time, a knit cap was pointed out to you. And did you ever see the investigator, McNally, who was there, try the knit cap on?
No.
There were so many anomalous things that occurred that, I mean, you could just go, oh, coincidence, 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 coincidence. But you would think that on a case of this magnitude that everything would be done right, and a lot of things were done wrong.
He mentioned Mr. McNally trying on a knit cap that he pointed out.
Yes.
Did you ever see him do that?
No.
What would happen to trace evidence, such as hair or fiber, on that cap if someone else, an investigator, tried it on?
Be compromised.
What do you mean by that?
A true reading of any trace evidence that was on that cap prior to him putting on his head couldn't be made.
Might his hairs get on the cap?
Certainly.
Might other hairs that are on the cap that are of evidentiary value get lost?
Yes.
Did you try on the ski cap that was found at the feet of Ron Goldman?
No.
Did you try on the glove?
No.
Would you ever do such a thing?
No.
You would not be disappointed if I don't ask any other questions.
No, sir, I would not.
Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Detective, thank you very much for your excuse, sir.
They're just laughing it up. Pain.
The people call Detective Mark Fuhrman.
Woohoo! Marky Mark! Oh, this is where it gets good. And that's why I'm doing a double dose. Get that coffee going. Better yet, get your wine
What
flowing.
we have on the court's calendar today is an amendment to the, or a continuation of the motion regarding Detective Fuhrman. Mr. Douglas.
Your Honor, there really is, as I see it, no real basis to challenge the relevance of the sought information and the fact that, in fact, this information would be critical to a full cross-examination of Mr. Fuhrman. I think, Your Honor, in this regard, it would be important to review the personnel files. I think it also very important, Your Honor, that the investigation over the possession of some cartoon or other picture that may have included a Nazi-like symbol or insignia is another matter that has some possible relevance to a full cross-examination of Mr. Fuhrman.
Well, that was a bad period in my life. It was a bad time.
We were also informed in chambers of the DA's awareness of an investigation that occurred over statements allegedly made by Mr. Fuhrman, suggesting that Mr. Fuhrman may have had some intimate knowledge of Ms. Brown Simpson, or in fact portions of her anatomy. Clearly, both areas of inquiry are very germane to the issues that we have put forward. If in fact there is any proof that there was some personal contact or acquaintanceship between Mr. Fuhrman and Ms. Simpson, that would be very probative in providing perhaps some bias or basis for bias or basis for some other harboring of ill will or motive against Mr. Simpson in particular.
I am confident the court will find nothing within any of these files to be relevant to these proceedings.
What is your view on the opinion expressed by many of the so-called experts that Fuhrman is a make or break, a crucial witness in this case?
This is hype on the media's part. I mean, it brings more interest in the case. There is no such witness going to make or break a case, regardless of how Mark Fuhrman comes across to the public.
He is so full of shit right here. Hold on. This is what you call just PR. PR for him, baby. PR for him. He's a liar.
View on the opinion expressed by many of the so-called experts that Fuhrman is a make or break, a crucial witness in this case.
This is hype on the media's part. I mean, it brings more interest in the case.
It's already so interested. What are you talking about?
Witness is going to make or break a case, regardless of how Mark Fuhrman comes across to the public. Our concern is, does he come across as a believable, candid, respected investigator in front of the jury?
Is the prosecution going to bring the race issue out first and beat the defense to the punch?
You think I'll tell you?
He thinks this is a fucking game.
Why Chris Darden for Mark Fuhrman?
That's what I thought. I thought he was running.
To use a legal term, you're assuming facts.
Gil.
Chris Darden will not be questioning?
May not be.
The LA County District Attorney's Office was under a great deal of criticism for what happened in the Rodney King case. Now comes the O.J. Simpson case. Race is all over this case. So they find Chris Darden. Now, what does he do when he's on the prosecution case? It's touchy. How do you figure out exactly what he does? You can't go overboard and say, look, here's our African-American lawyer. We're going to make him and put him in places where we need an African-American to impress the jury.
The prosecution, they blew it. They should never have used Mark Fuhrman. I can't believe that they didn't know that about him. Like, if you're a good prosecutor, a good lawyer, that's something you should know. You have to vet somebody, particularly when the stakes are high, particularly amidst all of the racial tension.
Exactly.
The people called Detective Mark Fuhrman.
I do.
Detective Fuhrman, can you tell us how you feel about testifying today?
Nervous, reluctant. Since June 13th, I've seen a lot of the evidence ignored and a lot of personal issues come to the forefront. I think that's too bad.
The swearing in of Detective Mark Fuhrman closes out week 7 of the O.J. Simpson trial, setting the stage for a moment that turns the trial upside down and inflames racial tensions in this country that are still being felt today.
Anyone who comes to this court and quotes you as using that word in dealing with African Americans would be a liar, would they not, Detective Fuhrman?
Yes, they would.
All of them, correct?
All of them.
That's next on OJ 25. I'm Roger Cossack. The millions of people following the O.J. Simpson trial.
I'll let you guys pick it. One more episode and then call it a wrap, or end right now and talk. So I think you guys want one more. I think everybody wants one more. I think everybody wants that. Everybody wants that one more. I'll let you guys decide. I'll let Maple Beeve decide. She's a good decider. And don't you ever link anybody in my chat again. Just kidding. These people. We don't drop links in chats. Okay. People need to get the fuck over themselves. So. All right, so I guess Maple Beeve, one more. Can we have a coffee interlude break, please? Yes, coffee interlude. Go grab it. This is your coffee break. Yep, I can go ahead and sex some girls, so go ahead. Coffee break it is. I can't type. Yeah, one more. Yeah, there we go. And if you link another person in my chat, I swear to God. Just kidding. If you drop one more person's link in my chat, Maple Beeve. No wonder I only have 19 people in here. Hi everyone who came in recently. I've been listening but lost my phone in a mountain of laundry. Well, laundry's more important, trust me. I got laundry to fold. I got laundry to wash. I gotta go to brunch today. I gotta text Frank. He's mad at me that I didn't go to the lake. His mom was busy. Hey you, let's go to Rudy's. Hey you, let's go to Rudy's. Thoughts. Hey you. Hey Jude. Back. Wakey bakey time. Yes, this is your interlude. This is a time for me to talk about my crush on Marcia Clark. Just kidding. No. I would have probably been doing someone like Faye and been like, girl, you involved with cocaine? Shit, you need to get up off my bed, girl. Hey, Mod Squad, I tried to text you last night, but I think the number I had was a landline. Who has landlines right now? Blink is the new black. I mean, come on. You know damn well Mod Squad does not have a landline. She's way too tech savvy for that. Yeah, no, Faye would have been kicked out of my bed, like, ASAP. The moment that she tried to start doing cocaine off my ass or something like that. So she would have been gone. Hey, Lana, can I blow this line off your tit? No, B. Get on out my bed. Hey. Okay. Bling, nope, that's me. I'm just a bad text returner. She's horribly bad. No, I don't know. She always calls me. Faye's lips are too big for her face. It's interesting that she went and left 4 days beforehand to go to rehab. I will say that's definitely interesting. But yeah. Okay. Here we go. I'll try to stall a little bit longer. Where's my, let's see. Oh, Faye! Oh, Faye! Come here, baby girl. Okay, here we go. 7 hours? Woo! Let's see.
Week 8 begins like many others. The prosecution calls a detective to the stand. But by week's end, the trial in this country are forever changed by what happens in that courtroom. The witness, Detective Mark Fuhrman. I'm Roger Cossack, and this is OJ 25.
I worked out my neck today. I did my neck shoulder shrugs.
All right, the people may call the next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The people call Detective Mark Fuhrman.
All right, Detective Fuhrman.
I do. Mark Fuhrman, M-A-R-K, F-U-H-R-M-A-N.
Detective Fuhrman, can you tell us how you feel about testifying today?
Nervous? Reluctant?
Can you tell us why?
Throughout, since June 13th, it seems that I've seen a lot of the evidence ignored and a lot of personal issues come to the forefront. I think that's too bad.
Have you gone over your testimony in the presence of several district attorneys in order to prepare yourself for court and the allegations that you may hear from the defense?
Yes.
And in the course of that particular examination, sir, was the topic of your testimony concerning the work you did in this case, the actual visitation to Bundy and Rockingham, was that discussed?
No.
Did you receive a call at some point that night?
Yes,
after
I
you
did.
went to bed?
Excuse. Yes, I did.
And what time did you get that call?
1:05 in the morning.
It's my boss, Ron Phillips, and he said, I've got 2 down, and I want you to handle it.
The north-south alleyway directly behind the residence had been blocked off with policemen at both locations to make sure nobody entered the crime scene from either direction.
Okay. So was there anyone moving around inside the crime scene tape when you got there?
No.
What were you able to see from your vantage point of where the arrow is shown?
We could see a female victim in a black dress.
With no purse on her. Her throat is cut, but we didn't know that. She's lying in a pool of blood. We couldn't see her face. Her hair is drenched with blood. We did not truly know who she was.
Well, Officer Risky used his flashlight to point out several items.
And what did he point out to you, sir?
Pointed out the male victim, the long leaves at the feet of the male victim. He pointed his flashlight and said that there was a knit cap and a glove there also.
So I was wondering if what I'd be doing with Sunset Secrets, if it was going to be too, bloody or whatever. But after seeing this, I mean, I think I'm free game.
There was kind of a not a crisp read of the scene initially. You had to be able to put a few things together first. Who was the guy? You know, how did she end up here? Why didn't she have any shoes on?
Tell us what else you see in this photograph.
I see shoe prints that appear to be dark and imprinted in what I believe to be.
See, I think that's like the most, like, out of all the detectives that have talked so far, that's like actually something like looking into something. Like, why doesn't she have any shoes on? You know, she doesn't have shoes on. Like, that's what he says. He noticed that. He's saying, he's talking about the actual crime scene. It just sucked that he was a racist piece of shit, you know?
Blood that morning.
So you looked at this and there was drops of blood, there was shoe prints leading away from the female, so the conclusion was at least 3 people were involved in this crime. We have 2 victims, and we have somebody that left, whether that was at
the feet of the male victim. He pointed his flashlight and said that there was a knit cap and a glove.
Was shown.
We could see
Was shown.
we could see a female victim in a black dress
with no purse on her. Her throat is cut, but we didn't know that. She's lying in a pool of blood. We couldn't see her face. Her hair is drenched with blood. We did not truly know who she was.
Well, Officer Risky used his flashlight to point out several items.
And what did he point out to you, sir?
Pointed out the male victim, the long leaves at the feet of the male victim. He pointed his flashlight and said that there was a knit cap and a glove there also.
There was kind of a not a crisp read of the scene initially. You had to be able to put a few things together first. Who was the guy? You know, how did she end up here? Why didn't she have any shoes on?
Tell us what else you see in this photograph.
I see shoe prints that appear to be dark and imprinted in what I believe to be blood that morning.
So you looked at this and there was drops of blood, there was shoe prints leading away from the female, so the conclusion was at least 3 people were involved in this crime. We have 2 victims, and we have somebody that left, whether that was a victim or a suspect.
Detective Phillips and Officer Risky walked back out onto Dorothy, and I re-entered the house to start catching up on the notes from what had been shown to me so far and what I have observed.
And so what is the closest that you got to the bodies of Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown at that time, 2 a.m. in the morning?
Standing above them on the top of the landing.
Now, at some point, did you leave the location of 875 South Bundy?
Yes, we did. Well, I asked Officer Risky, I said, do you know the numbers for the Rockingham location?
And did he respond to you?
He said 360 north. Then I asked Officer Risky, what's the last major street before you get there? And he responded, Cliffwood, but look real quick because you're going to miss it if you go around the corner too quick. All 4 of us exited the vehicle and stood around the Ashford gate. And I can't remember if it was Van Adder or Lang started ringing the buzzer at the gate.
You have 3 men that are standing at one doorbell, ringing it at a gate, a big gate, time and time again with no answer. It was killing me. I walked away like I don't want to be seen being part of this. This is too silly.
I was just strolling along, looking at the house. Maybe I could see some movement inside.
So I'm walking down the street, and there's a white Bronco. And it just seemed like it was parked wrong.
Lon Cryer, a juror in the Simpson trial, keeps detailed notes, over 600 pages in all, chronicling everything he sees and hears in the courtroom. In the 25 years since the trial, he has never looked at the notes, until now.
Investigating detectives makes a decision regarding the recovery of evidence from the scene.
So you walked down Rockingham, and what did you do then?
Well, I was walking straight forward towards this white Bronco that was parked.
Claims he determined that the Bronco was hastily parked upon his arrival at the Rockingham residence based on the fact that it was the only vehicle on the street at the time and appeared to be jettied out in the rear as if someone had hurriedly parked and gotten out of the vehicle.
To me, it looked parked a little unusual for that type of parking.
After walking away back toward Ashford, Fuhrman called him back to Bronco to point out that blood-like spots above door handle on driver's side door of Bronco.
As I'm looking on the door, I see some little specks, some streaks of red that looks like blood.
While I'm reading it, I'm starting to realize how much the Bronco really meant as far as for whether they found blood or not in it. There was always some problems as far as for certain blood samples from that vehicle not being removed from the vehicle till weeks after it had went into the impound. So this is interesting. He's referring to the situation as the Bronco was still right there at the curve.
You were the most junior detective, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you in the best physical shape of the 4 detectives there?
Well, I don't. Kind of put me on the spot, but I think I was the tallest detective.
Okay.
I jumped the wall just to the left or east of the Ashford gate, landed on the other side, came around and released the hydraulic arm to the gate on Ashford and let the other detectives into the location.
Van Adder and Lang pretty much just went in and nobody answered the door at the main residence, and eventually they got at the pool bungalows, Cato Kalin to answer his door. Cato Kalin's a character. They talked to Cato Kalin for a brief minute, and all three of them go down to the last bungalow when Cato said, well, Arnell, OJ's daughter, is down at the last bungalow, so they all rushed down there. So I'm left with Cato, so okay, I'll ask Cato some questions.
I believe one of the first things I asked him was, do you mind if I look around? He replied, no. I think I asked him another question.
And what was that?
If anything unusual happened last night.
He says, well, there was an earthquake last night.
So why can you get away with getting up on the stand and saying something like that then?
Because you hadn't been cross-examined yet, and I don't interrupt.
Delaney loving some Cato. You better adding to that. Okay, are you in Cincy? No, I'm in Columbus.
Then at the outside of the residence, you were trying to determine what wall matched up with the outside of Cato's room?
Yes.
But I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, I was talking to my girlfriend, and he gave a certain time.
Who was his girlfriend?
And all of a sudden, there was this big rumbling crash on my wall, and the picture actually shook right above my head. So I said, okay, and I knew full well there was not an earthquake the previous night.
Then after you passed through the second gate area, you saw the wall that appeared to match Cato's wall.
Yes.
Then what happened?
I continued walking down the path, and when I got approximately 15 or 20 feet away, I saw a dark object. I continued to walk forward towards that object. At some point, I could tell that it was a glove.
As I got closer, I shined my flashlight on it, and I could see it was clearly a glove, and it looked damp. I also noted that it looked very similar to the glove at Bundy.
What's up, Jacqueline?
I at some point talked to Detective Van Adder and Lang, and I took Detective Van Adder back to the location.
It was Lang that was on, by the way.
What Van Adder said. He goes, This is a crime scene. Yeah. Like it wasn't before, and we've got possible blood on a Bronco, and I said, that's why we're here.
So at the time that you found the glove, you still did not know where he was or where he'd gone or when he'd gone there?
No.
After you went out into the...
There she is, my wifey, Marcia.
Examined the alley for blood. What did you do next?
Well, we were walking, and I was trying to take mental notes.
What I remember the most about Mark Fuhrman was he was really confident. He seemed very assured and almost cocky.
Can you tell us whether you knew someone or met someone by the name of Kathleen Bell?
Yes, I can tell you. I did not.
At the center of the defense case was this argument that O.J. Simpson was framed by Mark Fuhrman, by Phil Van Adder, that there was a cover-up, and that was spurred by racism on the part of these police officers.
But you do recognize the name, don't you, sir?
Yes.
Well, they had some witnesses that were coming forward. A female that was trying to, I think she was trying to flirt with me, and I really wanted nothing to do with her. I didn't recall the conversation.
Yes.
That I made some racial comments.
And how was it that you heard her name? In connection with what?
In connection with allegations of statements I made to her at a date sometime in 85 or 86.
Were you informed about a letter she had written in July of 1994 after the preliminary hearing to Johnny Cochran?
Yes, I did.
Did the conversation Kathleen Bell describes in this letter occur?
No, it did not.
The letter from Kathleen Bell says she meets Fuhrman in 1985 or 86. She says during their conversation, he tells her that he wants to kill black people and that interracial couples disgust him.
I could see the writing on the wall, and it was fairly obvious from the onset that they could not actually challenge the evidence.
All right, Detective Fuhrman, could we ask you to step outside, please? Thank you.
Fuhrman's global attitudes toward race specifically, and in particular, couples that are racially mixed, such as Mr. Simpson and Nicole, is fair game for questioning, inasmuch as he is very definitively a suspect for having carried that glove from Bundy, where he found it, to Rockingham, where he deposited it. We intend to show in incident after incident that Detective Fuhrman was willing to violate the law and the federal civil rights statute to unfairly prosecute black men who he found in the company of white women, and that this pattern was consistent right up until shortly before this incident. In the extraordinary set of circumstances where the prosecution felt compelled to acquaint the jury with the fact that this witness required special training so he could control himself on the witness stand, we're entitled to show why that special training was and always will be necessary in his case.
This is the letter Kathleen Bell sends to the defense. She says, quote, "Mr. Fuhrman may be more racist than you could ever imagine," end quote. She says Fuhrman told her he would look for a reason to pull over black men driving with white women, and that he would like to see all black people gathered together and killed. She also says Fuhrman repeatedly uses the N-word when talking about black people.
I mean, is that where this case is going? How far afield do we have to go on this witness? I mean, we have gone way out there with, in the past 10 years, have you ever used a racial slur? And a woman who makes allegations about him 10 years ago, and what other cases he's ever testified in. And I mean, we have really hit the outer limits here, and this is far beyond the outer limits. This is the twilight zone. This letter really has no bearing on this detective's credibility, Your Honor.
His offer that it was a crime against nature for a black man to be with a white woman should in and of itself be enough to allow cross-examination on his racial bias.
In the course
of attempting to obtain a stress disability. He described stresses in the field. He had worked gangs, and he had used derogatory terms toward, I think, Latinos as well as African Americans, and this was part of his case to stress off of LAPD, which was something, unfortunately, at the time was fairly common. That request was denied. So we basically looked at it very clinically and we certainly felt we were prepared to deal with that aspect of Mark Fuhrman's background.
They will never be able to give this court an offer of proof. They haven't to this date. When the people have requested that they do so, give us an offer of proof. Show us how you're going to prove that this detective planted this evidence. They have not once been able to do so.
I'm not defending Mark Fuhrman, you know, but I never, ever believed that he would do something like that.
Initially, we supported him. When he was getting slapped around before any of this other stuff came out, I said, Mark, I'm going to sit in the first row every day you're on the stand. We're on your side. Well, once he gets caught with his pants down around his ankles and he's pointing in every direction with his own, all that changes.
These allegations get more outrageous by the minute. And I'm stricken again by the preposterousness of the claims of the defense.
Bitch named Paula. That's a Biggie Small song. Bitch named Paula.
Well, I was disappointed we lost the case.
Sure. Did it go a little further than that, Detective Fuhrman?
No, not at all.
Weren't you a little bit angry that you were being shoved out of a murder in your own territory?
No.
Didn't bother you a bit?
None.
F. Lee Bailey cross-examining Mark Fuhrman. That was a really iconic moment. You have to remember, defense attorneys, especially those who are high profile, who do these high profile trials, there is some amount of performance that's needed. It's a little bit different than the way prosecutors usually present evidence and present their case.
Detective Phillips, give us his exact order to you that accompanied the notice that you were out. What was the order?
Robbery homicide's taken the case.
Did he say, Mark, don't do any more work on this case?
No, I understood that.
When you walked down to the Bronco, did you ask permission from Lieutenant Van Adder before you did that?
Detective Van Adder? No.
I'm sorry, Detective Van Adder. Detective Phillips?
No.
Detective Lang?
No.
This was on your own initiative?
Yes.
You weren't just being nosy, were you?
I don't think nosy. I was walking and I noticed something on the Bronco and I continued walking towards it.
Did you wipe a glove in the Bronco, Detective Fuhrman?
No.
You did not?
No.
Have you ever testified that there was blood in the Bronco?
I'm not sure if we testified to that in the prelim or not. From the statement he made, the crashing sound and the time that he heard it, combined with the blood in the Bronco, the way I was feeling is there's a possibility there could be another victim.
I said I couldn't see inside the car really well, just the back. There's a shovel and some plastic because the tint was reflecting back my flashlight. So now he had natural light, and he cups his hands and looks in, and he goes, there's blood all over the inside.
You then walked out the front door?
Yes.
You had no direction from anyone to do that, did you?
No, I didn't.
This, again, was Detective Fuhrman on his own, was it not?
Yes.
You had an idea that you would like to check out Cato's claim that some unusual noise had occurred at about 11:15 that night on the outside of the wall of Cato Kalin's room.
That's correct.
Now, if that glove had been there where you say you found it, it would have been placed there by someone involved in the homicide. Isn't that conclusion compelled?
I would assume that, yes.
That would be a vicious killer of some sort, would it not?
Yes.
And you hung around for 15 minutes with no backup and no vest doing something. Is that correct?
No, it isn't.
Has anyone, to your knowledge, seen that glove there before your arrival?
Not to my knowledge.
Would you think it important that if the glove were in that location, the likelihood was that someone had placed it there who had been at Bundy?
Yes.
Did you think that whoever had dropped that glove might have left footprints?
I did not see any evidence of that, no.
Did you then cause 18 pairs of feet to trample that area before any criminals could get to it?
18 pairs
18 pairs of feet. 2 Fuhrman, 4 Fuhrman and Phillips, 4 Fuhrman and Van Adder, 4 Fuhrman and Lang, and 4 Fuhrman and Rokar. Did you do that?
Yes, sir.
There was really no thought about anything about the glove. It looked like the glove at Bundy. There was nothing that indicated anything how it was there, if it was thrown there, dropped there. The ground had leaves. There was no way to say if there was a shoe print. There was no other evidence. It looked fresh. There was no debris on top of it. There was no giant conclusions other than it looks like the glove at Bundy.
Did you believe that you would be an essential witness if you were the first to find an important piece of evidence?
Well, I couldn't make that determination at that time, sir. I didn't even know what the implication of the glove was.
Well, you told us the minute you saw it, you thought it looked like the one on Bundy, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
All
I
right.
thought it looked
Now,
like.
you're a trained detective. Tell the court, if you can, why the presence of the other murder glove from Bundy made you think that you were about to encounter a victim, Detective Fuhrman.
Because I didn't have anything to believe that there was a suspect there other than the bloody glove.
People talk about Fuhrman being one of the investigators. I suppose you could say that initially, but the reality was he was in and out on day one. He had nothing to do with this case after the first day until the defense found out about him and used him as their foil.
Is that the sum total of the observations you made on that little excursion? About a couple of gloves, Detective.
Excuse me?
Did you see a couple of gloves up there?
No, I saw one glove.
There's a problem that's been brought to your attention, isn't there, Detective Fuhrman?
No.
When discussing this event in the preliminary hearing and talking about the glove, his tongue slipped and you said them, didn't you?
Yes.
From that vantage point, you first observed the glove that you told us about?
Not first, no.
When did you first observe it?
There's a iron fence, and through that iron fence you can get very close to the male victim. And looking there, I could see them down at his feet.
Not only the planting of evidence, a glove at Rockingham is absurd, and I take affront to the point where I took 2 polygraphs. The idea was F. Lee Bailey would apologize to me for saying I planted evidence if I took a polygraph from his guy. Okay? I did that one on TV. And he said, you passed at the highest level I've ever seen anybody pass this polygraph. 1, I'm waiting for my apology. 2, I think it is such a disgrace that intelligent people with a doctorate in law would actually put the country and the legal system through such a charade for nothing more than their own ego to say, I won.
As week 8 unfolds with the prosecution's star witness, Detective Mark Fuhrman, the defense is biding its time. They've made no secret of their plan to attack Fuhrman as a racist who planted evidence. But the fury and thunder of legal legend F. Lee Bailey and his cross-examination of Fuhrman raises the bar on how to trap a witness in a lie.
There are some issues we need to resolve before he gets the witness stand in front of the jury.
How many total times have you met with either Mr. Darden, Ms. Clark, or anyone else in the prosecution team in connection with your testimony?
7 or 8 times.
7 or 8. Beginning when and ending when?
There'll be various times this year.
Do you represent to this important jury that 3 lawyers asked you a total of 10 questions?
Yes.
in this session?
Yes.
Do you know any lawyer on this earth who is capable of asking only 3 questions?
Not currently.
Touche. Now, do you have any memory of even one of these 10 questions?
No.
Not a single one?
No, sir.
And this happened when, Detective Fuhrman?
I believe it was 2 or 3 weeks ago.
2 or 3 weeks ago?
Yes.
Well, now you have been exhibiting a startling memory for detail of a crime that was 8 months ago, have you not?
Many people don't understand how lonely it was
Boom.
there knowing what was about to come.
It's questionable whether it was necessary for Mark Fuhrman to testify. Prosecution said they had to introduce him, they had to bring him on because he found the glove behind Cato Kalin's room on the Rockingham estate. But many experts in trial law say that the person who collected the evidence could have testified, that other people could have testified. So obviously, in hindsight, it was a really bad choice.
Tell us, please, what it was you offered these lawyers in that room about your vocabulary, Detective Fuhrman.
F. Lee Bailey's cross-examination of Mark Fuhrman was very dramatic. It was kind of like out of a movie. And it was a big moment in the courtroom because we knew that it was pivotal. Like the way that F. Lee Bailey was setting him up just seemed so such a classic trap. And it was almost hard to believe, is he really just gonna walk into this trap like that? But he did.
I don't use any type of language to describe people of any race, such as what is alleged by Kathleen Bell.
I also became a little angry and a little stubborn, and it's almost like F. Lee Bailey and I were there all by ourselves.
Right now, F. Lee Bailey has Mark Fuhrman right where he wants him, and watch what happens next. F. Lee Bailey uses that offensive word time after time after time, and he's doing it because every time F. Lee Bailey says it, Mark Fuhrman might as well be saying it. The jury is looking at him, and he is building Mark Fuhrman into being a racist by using that word over and over.
Did you tell the lawyers in that room that you never used the word?
Overruled.
It was never asked.
I'm asking, do you?
Do I what?
That's vague. Rephrase the question.
Do you use the word in describing people?
Presently.
Yeah.
Overruled.
No, sir.
Have you used that word in the past 10 years?
Not that I recall, no.
And when F. Lee Bailey asked him if he had ever used the N-word in the previous 10 years, he was very, very definitive in saying that he had not, which was surprising to us in the media. We thought he would give himself a little wiggle room.
If he had said, yeah, of course I've said that. Am I ashamed of it? Sure. I was stupid, whatever he could have
He said, not that I recall.
No, never used that word in my life. And nobody believed him.
I'm not sure I can answer that question the way you phrased it, sir.
The second that they didn't believe him on that issue, then there's a question, gee, if he's a racist, do you think he planted the evidence?
Just because there was a racist cop on there, it shouldn't be the reason why you would consider it. But of course, he was very prominent, and he played a very prominent role in the investigation itself. And so to know that he had a certain prejudice or bias against the defendant right at that point, it just didn't bode well with me and how I looked at things at that point.
The defense's strategy is incompetence, racism, planting of evidence. It doesn't disprove guilt. Prove that I can't write search warrants, that I don't know how to do my job, that I don't understand chains of custody, rules of evidence, that I don't understand the Fourth Amendment. Then you may have an argument.
When Bailey used the N-word, I know that he wants to sensationalize his presentation.
The first time I dumped that word on him, he knew it was coming.
He has lied to this court. He's impeached by his own
And I
witness.
ask that you put a stop to it. Either put Cordova on the
Excuse
stand
me, Mr.
or
Bailey.
stop her from telling
Stand up and speak when it's your turn.
Okay, Marcia. Okay, baby. Tell me, Marcia. Okay, girl. What you want to do, girl? You will speak when you are spoken to. Okay.
You mean if you called someone a you have forgotten it?
Every time the courtroom was electrified, every time the word was used, I got a lot of criticism for it in the press because in their trial wisdom, they thought I should have softened it up a bit. Well, that ain't the way the game is played.
I'm not sure I can answer that question the way you phrased it, sir.
You have difficulty understanding the question. I'll rephrase it.
Bailey knew what the answers were, and he had the evidence to back it up. So it was almost like he was toying with Fuhrman because he knew he had Fuhrman trapped.
And you say on your oath that you have not addressed any black person as a or spoken about black people as in the past 10 years, Detective Fuhrman.
That's what I'm saying, sir.
So that anyone who comes to this court and quotes you as using that word in dealing with African Americans would be a liar, would they not, Detective Fuhrman?
Yes, they would.
All of them, correct?
All of them.
All right, thank you.
I do believe that by him using it as often as he did, for me, it was like, oh, well, yeah, he's kind of grandstanding with using the word itself. It was pretty riveting, I'll say that for sure, especially in the context of in the courtroom like that. Again, it's a word that I heard often growing up as a kid, probably, but it was different to hear it in a courtroom environment where we were trying to decide a person's guilt of it or innocence at that point.
When I said to Fuhrman, anyone who comes into this courtroom and says you use that bad word would be a liar, is that correct? And he hesitated and he said yes. And I looked at him incredulously and I said, all of them? Which tipped him to the fact I had an army outside the courtroom door. And the mistake he made was, yes, all of them.
It's an unquestioned statement that if we insert it, then all else is wrong. Then everything gets thrown out the window. So when you talk about race, the Simpson trial, Judge Ito really failed not only himself, he failed everything that he did before and everything he did after, because this is the only case anybody knew about. When he allowed the question, he eliminated the possibility of justice.
He not only made himself look bad, he made the police department look bad. He made all of law enforcement look bad. It was an embarrassment to testify in open court in front of 50 million people or more on live television.
They couldn't understand how a respected police officer planted a glove. I mean, who would do something like that? Because that's not their experience, you know? And the legacy, unfortunately, in the African-American community is that happens every day.
The fact that the officers did what they did in that case, I wasn't surprised about it at all. Because again, I was already aware, by being a member of the African-American community myself, that there are people that have very negative encounters with the police.
And under what circumstances have you seen him?
I've seen him in the DA's office.
Mark Fuhrman was intelligent, good-looking, articulate police officer who presented himself as being able to assess what was happening in this case, presenting evidence in this case in a way that was rational and thoughtful. That's how he first came off.
And you say on your oath that you have not addressed any black person as a or spoken about black people as in the past 10 years, Detective Fuhrman.
That's what I'm saying, sir.
As the trial went on and as we learned more information about Fuhrman, that veneer kind of came off. F. Lee Bailey destroyed Mark Fuhrman on the stand. You know, he did more than back him in the corner. He backed him into a corner and then, like, crushed him.
There was discussion and somewhat a meeting of minds and hoping that we could prepare me for cross-examination. I don't think it achieved those goals.
But you said, Detective Fuhrman, that your concerns had nothing to do with the crime scene or the murder. They were something else.
Yes.
All right. What were the concerns, Detective Fuhrman?
Well, there's been numerous motions to bring in irrelevant evidence into this trial.
Irrelevant evidence?
Yes, sir.
Such as? Detective Fuhrman, what events did you have in mind when you spoke of irrelevant occurrences that you feared might be brought into court?
Kathleen Bell.
All right. And you say that that's irrelevant?
Yes.
He's a very arrogant individual. He's very self-absorbed.
Bailey has a way of putting it out there that sounded so strong, and Fuhrman just went right along with it.
It was just another knife to pull. It was another excuse, another arrow in the quiver that they could pull when somebody is as guilty as sin. They can pull the race card, and then somehow you're 50% home.
Not only did these alleged incidents never occur, but the purpose for which they're being admitted could never have occurred. And Max Cordoba gave us a statement that says none of that.
Cordoba says,
Sorry, my guy is cutting my grass.
the boy is here. And Fuhrman turns on Cordoba and says, let's get something straight. The only boy here is you. And then Cordoba leaves the building, and Fuhrman follows him out into the parking lot and repeats the same epithet.
We've interviewed Max Cordoba long time ago. He never made such a statement. And he never alleged that Mark Fuhrman ever made such a statement.
Max Cordoba wanted to tell Mr. Darden and Miss Lewis about this incident, and they shut him off. And that's what he will testify to. And, Your Honor, I have spoken with him on the phone personally, Marine to Marine. I haven't the slightest doubt that he'll march up to that witness stand and tell the world what Fuhrman called him on no provocation whatsoever.
Ms. Clark.
You know, Your Honor, all we're getting here is a lot of very dramatic posturing. Because when these witnesses take the witness stand, if they ever do, the court is going to see a very different story than what Mr. Bailey has laid out for the court today. You can rest assured, I want this film clip saved forever, because this is going to be very funny.
I have spoken with him on the phone personally, Marine to Marine.
No, I have not talked to F. Lee Bailey.
Never talked to him?
No.
You know who F. Lee Bailey is?
Yes.
Pretty distinct fellow.
Yeah.
Pretty distinct voice.
Correct.
So you haven't talked Marine to Marine to F. Lee Bailey?
No.
It's very clear what he said to the court and what he was intending to convey.
I do not appreciate being called a liar in any court.
He was intending to convey to the court that he had personal knowledge of what this man said because this man said it to him personally, Marine to Marine.
And I will ask at the proper time for correct action to be taken.
And then they have, well, this means this, and oh no, that means that. I felt like we're in Alice in Wonderland. We've got Jabberwocky here.
The proper way to proceed, if there was any claim of misleading the court, would be to put the witness on the witness stand under oath.
I think that Mr. Bailey should be cited for contempt and fined substantially.
What they eliminated from the tape that I saw on NBC News this morning was that Stone Phillips said, why didn't you mention these things before? He said, I only give very narrow answers to every question.
He has lied to this court. He's impeached by his own witness.
I ask that you put a stop to it. Either put Cordoba on the stand
Excuse me, Mr.
or
Bailey.
stop her from testifying.
Stand up and speak when it's your turn.
You're being penalized at this point merely under the procedure of the California Evidence Code, which says prior inconsistent statements can be offered in one of two ways. Either the witness is confronted or the witness is still available to be cross-examined. And that's how we're going to do it. Thank you, sir.
All right, no more objection, please.
Noted. I think it would be appropriate to begin this session by both sides acknowledging going beyond the bounds of professional conduct.
I do extend to Mr. Bailey my apology for the extreme nature of the exchange yesterday. I don't anticipate that happening again. And I think that we will all, from this day forward, conduct ourselves as the professionals, seasoned professionals that we all are.
Mr. Bailey?
I, without hesitation, apologize for what I have found as an unwarranted comment directed at Ms. Clark, and that was that her eyesight and memory were deficient. Very plainly, that was unfair since her eyesight is excellent and her memory has proven to be the same.
Detective Fuhrman, Did you know whether any fibers from the Bronco would be found on that glove that you ultimately found at Rockingham?
No.
And did you know the cause of death?
No.
I have nothing further.
She gave up. You've got to do some redirect. You can't just let me be butchered by the defense.
All right, Detective Fuhrman, I'm going to release you from further testimony today. However, you are still subject to recall. You are ordered not to discuss your testimony with anybody except your own attorney and the attorneys from both sides or their investigators. Do you understand the order, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you very much. Your excuse, sir. Thank you.
I just said it can't be this screwed up. It can't be. This is like, I mean, introducing race into this would be like introducing sexual preference into a motive. I mean, it really has nothing to do with anything. I was put in a position that many say I deserved. And to me, I thought about one thing when I was sitting there, and I go, you dumb son of a bitch, you should have never done a good job. You should have never answered that phone.
All right. Detective, part of the court's order is you agree to return within 72 hours of being notified. Do you understand the order?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Thank you. And you'll give the court plenty of notice? Yes, sir. All right.
Week 8 of the O.J. Simpson trial ends with Detective Mark Fuhrman stepping out of the witness box and into history. The impact of his testimony still reverberating today. Coming up, Cato Kalin, O.J. Simpson's offbeat house guest, brings a drastic mood change to the courtroom. That's next on O.J. 25.
All right, and that's where we're going to stop it because Cato deserves his own day. Mark Fuhrman just, wrecked. Mark Fuhrman does actually come back, though, but I totally forgot about the whole F. Lee Bailey with the NBC stuff. I'm actually going to look into that because I don't remember enough of it, and I want to. So, I got to go, though. I have a female to attend to. I have to pay my lawn boy, and I have to go have brunch with friends. It's Sunday. It's beautiful. It's so sunny. I'm gonna go get some color. We're going out on the patio. So, but yeah, Cato's up next, and you guys enjoy your Sunday. Thank you for being here, and thank you for all the spam. I love the fact that I fuck with your day so much that you have to make it a point to come to my live and do something. I love the fact that I'm on your mind all the time. It's very flattering, and none of you guys can work without thinking about Lana. So have a good day, and I'm going to do the same.